Quinn Navarro's shoulders ached as he climbed the steps of the metro station. But the weight wasn't from his backpack or the grocery bags cutting into his palms. It was the exhaustion that came from working double shifts at the warehouse, then rushing to pick up his 4-year-old daughter from daycare before it closed. His muscles screamed for rest, but he pushed forward because that was what fathers did. They pushed forward. He was halfway up the stairs when he heard it, the frustrated grunt of someone struggling behind him. Quinn turned to see a woman in an elegant navy dress trying to maneuver a stroller up the concrete steps. She was maybe his age, late 20s, with dark hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. Her heels clicked against each step as she attempted to lift the stroller backwards, her face flushed with effort. Without thinking, Quinn set down his grocery bags on the landing. "Hey, let me help you with that." The woman looked up, surprise flickering across her features. Her green eyes were striking even in the fluorescent lighting of the subway station. "Oh, you don't have to, it's no problem," Quinn said, already moving down the steps toward her. He noticed the baby in the stroller, maybe 8 months old, sleeping peacefully despite the jostling. "I've been there. These stations weren't built with parents in mind." He gripped the bottom of the stroller frame while she held the handles, and together they navigated the remaining stairs. Quinn's arms burned, but he kept his expression neutral. The last thing he wanted was for this woman to feel guilty about accepting help. "Thank you so much," she said when they reached the top. Her voice was warm, tinged with genuine gratitude. "I usually have my driver, but today I wanted to take the metro. I forgot how challenging it could be." Quinn smiled, brushing off his hands. "No worries, have a good day." He grabbed his grocery bags and turned to leave, but her voice stopped him. "Wait, I didn't catch your name." Quinn Navarro. "I'm Victoria Greene." She extended her hand, and he shook it, noting the softness of her skin against his calloused palm. "Thank you again, Quinn. You really saved me." He nodded, gave a small wave, and headed toward the exit. As he walked away, he didn't notice Victoria watching him with an expression that was more than simple gratitude. She had noticed the way he moved with purpose, despite his obvious fatigue, the gentleness in his hands as he steadied her stroller, the kindness in his eyes that seemed rare in this city. Quinn didn't think about the encounter again until he was home, feeding his daughter Emma mac and cheese while she told him about her day at daycare. She was animated, her brown curls bouncing as she described the tower she had built with blocks. "It was this big, Daddy," Emma said, stretching her arms as wide as they would go. "Wow, that sounds amazing, Princess," Quinn said, wiping sauce from her chin with a napkin. His apartment was small, just a 1-bedroom in a neighborhood that had seen better days, but it was clean and filled with Emma's artwork and toys. Quinn slept on the couch so Emma could have the bedroom. It wasn't much, but it was theirs, and that was what mattered. After putting Emma to bed, Quinn collapsed onto the couch and stared at the ceiling. His ex-girlfriend Sarah had left when Emma was 6 months old, unable to handle the responsibility of parenthood. She had walked out one morning and never returned, leaving Quinn to figure out fatherhood alone. Some days were harder than others, but looking at Emma's smiling face made every struggle worth it. 3 days later, Quinn was at the same metro station, this time carrying Emma on his shoulders. She giggled as they descended the stairs, her small hands gripping his hair. "Gently, Em," he said with a laugh. "Daddy needs that hair." "You have lots of hair, Daddy," Emma declared. At the bottom of the stairs, Quinn nearly collided with someone. He stepped back quickly and found himself looking at Victoria Greene again. She was pushing the same stroller, though this time the baby was awake, staring up at the world with curious blue eyes. "Quinn," Victoria said, her face brightening with recognition. "What a coincidence." "Miss Greene," he replied, shifting Emma on his shoulders. "Let me guess, need help with the stairs?" She laughed, and it was a genuine, unguarded sound. "I was actually about to call my driver, but if you're offering..." "Of course." Quinn lifted Emma down and held her hand. "Emma, can you be a big girl and climb the stairs yourself?" Emma nodded solemnly. I'm very big. Together, Quinn and Victoria navigated the stairs again, with Emma climbing carefully beside them. At the top, Victoria's baby began to fuss, and she lifted him from the stroller, bouncing him gently. This is Oliver, she said. He's teething, poor thing. Emma peered at the baby with interest. He's little. You were that little once, Quinn told her. Victoria smiled at the interaction. How old is your daughter? 4, going on 14, I think. Quinn ruffled Emma's hair affectionately. She's beautiful. Victoria's eyes met his, and there was something in her gaze that made Quinn's heart skip. Listen, this might be forward, but would you and Emma like to get coffee? There's a cafe around the corner. My treat, as a thank you for helping me twice now. Quinn hesitated. He had 100 things to do: laundry, meal prep for the week, fixing the leaky faucet in the bathroom. But Emma was tugging on his hand, her eyes bright with excitement at the prospect of going somewhere new. Sure, he heard himself say. Coffee sounds good. The cafe was a small place with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. Victoria ordered a latte and a croissant for herself, then insisted on buying Emma a hot chocolate and a cookie. Quinn ordered black coffee, the cheapest thing on the menu, though Victoria had made it clear she was paying. They settled at a corner table, Emma happily munching her cookie while Oliver dozed in his stroller. So, Victoria said, wrapping her hands around her cup. Tell me about yourself, Quinn. He shrugged. Not much to tell. I work at a warehouse, take care of Emma, try to keep our heads above water. Is Emma's mother in the picture? Quinn's jaw tightened. No, she left when Emma was a baby. I'm sorry. Victoria's sympathy seemed genuine. That must be incredibly difficult. We manage. Quinn took a sip of his coffee. What about you? Oliver's dad. Similar story, actually. Victoria glanced at her sleeping son. His father decided parenthood wasn't for him, left before Oliver was born. There was a moment of shared understanding between them, an acknowledgement of the unique challenges single parenthood brought. So what do you do? Quinn asked, trying to keep the conversation light. Victoria hesitated for just a second. I work in business management. Lots of meetings, lots of stress, but it pays the bills. Quinn didn't press further. He could tell from her clothes, her bearing, that she probably did more than just pay the bills, but he wasn't going to pry. They talked for over an hour, the conversation flowing easily. Victoria was intelligent and funny, with a dry wit that caught Quinn off guard. She asked about his work, his hobbies, his dreams for Emma's future, and she listened with genuine interest. In turn, she told him about Oliver's milestones, her struggles with work-life balance, her love of old movies and mystery novels. Emma eventually grew restless, climbing on Quinn's lap and playing with his watch. We should probably get going, Quinn said reluctantly. Someone's past her quiet time. I'm not tired, Emma protested, even as she rubbed her eyes. Victoria laughed. I understand, but before you go, could I give you my number? Maybe we could do this again sometime. Oliver could use a friend like Emma. Quinn felt his heart rate pick up. Yeah, that would be great. They exchanged numbers, and Quinn tried not to read too much into it. She probably just wanted Emma as a playmate for Oliver. It didn't have to mean anything more. But as they said goodbye on the sidewalk, Victoria touched his arm briefly. I really enjoyed talking with you, Quinn. Thank you for giving me a chance to get to know you. Over the next few weeks, Quinn and Victoria fell into a pattern of meeting up. Sometimes it was at the cafe, other times at the park where Emma could run around while Oliver observed from his stroller. Quinn learned that Victoria was organized and thoughtful, always remembering little details he mentioned in passing. She brought Emma a book about dinosaurs after Quinn mentioned his daughter's fascination with them. She asked about his mother's health when he casually mentioned she lived upstate. For his part, Quinn tried to reciprocate, though his budget was tight. He brought Victoria coffee from the bodega near his work, the way she liked it with 2 sugars and cream. He helped her carry groceries when they ran into each other at the store. He was always there when she needed someone to hold Oliver while she dealt with a work call or adjusted the stroller. It was during one of their park meetings that Emma looked up at Victoria and asked, "Are you Daddy's girlfriend?" Quinn nearly choked on his water. "Emma, that's not," but Victoria just smiled gently. "Would you like me to be?" Emma considered this seriously. "Do you make Daddy happy? I hope so." "Then yes." Quinn felt his face heat. "I'm sorry, she doesn't have a filter." "Don't apologize." Victoria met his eyes. "She asks good questions." There was a charged moment between them, and Quinn realized with startling clarity that he had developed real feelings for this woman. It wasn't just her beauty or her intelligence. It was the way she laughed at his terrible jokes, the way she never made him feel less than because of his financial situation, the way she looked at Emma with genuine affection. But doubt crept in as quickly as the realization. Victoria was clearly successful, probably wealthy. What could she possibly want with a warehouse worker who could barely make rent? She probably saw him as a friend, nothing more. Still, he couldn't help but notice the way her hand would brush against his as they walked, or how her smile seemed to brighten when she saw him. One evening, Victoria called him. It was late, past Emma's bedtime, and Quinn was surprised to see her name on his phone screen. "Hey, is everything okay?" he answered. "Quinn, I need a favor." Victoria's voice was stressed. "My regular babysitter canceled, and I have this work dinner I absolutely cannot miss. I know this is incredibly last minute, but would you be able to watch Oliver for a few hours?" Quinn glanced at Emma's closed bedroom door. "Of course, bring him over." "Are you sure? I don't want to impose." "Victoria, it's fine. I've got this." 20 minutes later, Victoria appeared at his door in a stunning black dress, Oliver bundled in her arms along with an overstuffed diaper bag. "Thank you so much," she said, stepping into his modest apartment. If she was surprised by the small space, she didn't show it. "He's been fed and changed. There's formula in the bag if he gets hungry, but he should be okay until I get back. I won't be late, I promise." "Take your time," Quinn said, taking Oliver into his arms. The baby gazed up at him with trusting eyes. "We'll be fine." Victoria lingered at the door, looking between Quinn and her son. "You're really saving me. I owe you big time. We're friends. That's what friends do." Something flickered across Victoria's face at the word friends, but Quinn couldn't read it before she composed herself. "Right. Friends." She grabbed her clutch. "I'll text you updates." After she left, Quinn settled Oliver on a blanket on the living room floor with some soft toys. The baby was content, gurgling happily as he played. Quinn sat beside him, making sure he was safe, marveling at how natural this felt. His phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. "How's he doing?" "Perfect angel," Quinn replied. "Stop worrying and enjoy your dinner." Easier said than done. "I miss him already." Quinn smiled at his phone. He understood that feeling completely. Oliver fell asleep around 9, and Quinn carefully transferred him to a nest of pillows on the couch, building a protective barrier so he couldn't roll. He was watching a muted basketball game when Victoria returned at 10:30, looking exhausted but relieved. "How was he?" she whispered, seeing her sleeping son. "Great. Played for a bit, took a bottle, went down easy." Victoria visibly relaxed. "You're a natural." "I've had practice." Quinn stood, stretching. "How was your dinner?" "Boring. Corporate." She kicked off her heels with a sigh of relief. "I spent the whole time thinking about getting back here." Quinn carefully scooped up Oliver, and Victoria moved to take him, but their arms tangled in the process. They were suddenly very close, close enough that Quinn could smell her perfume, something subtle and expensive. "Sorry," he murmured, but he didn't step back, neither did Victoria. She looked up at him, her green eyes searching his face. "Quinn." "Yeah, I need to tell you something." She took a breath. "I haven't been completely honest with you." Quinn's stomach dropped. Here it came, whatever truth she had been hiding. "I don't work in business management." "Well, I do, but that's not the whole story." Victoria looked nervous, which was unusual for her. "I'm the CEO of Greene Industries." "The tech company?" Quinn blinked. Greene Industries was massive, a company he had heard about even in his limited exposure to the business world. They made software and hardware, employed thousands of people, and were worth billions. "You're a CEO," he said slowly. "Yes." "Of Greene Industries." "Yes." Quinn took a step back, carefully adjusting Oliver in his arms. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because of this." Victoria gestured between them. "Because I was tired of people treating me differently when they found out. Because you saw me as just Victoria, a mom struggling with a stroller, and that was wonderful. I didn't want to lose that. I wouldn't have treated you differently. Wouldn't you have?" she challenged gently. "Be honest." Quinn thought about it. Would he have approached her in the first place if he had known? Would he have relaxed into their friendship so easily, or would he have been intimidated, careful, constantly aware of the gap between them? Maybe, he admitted. "I don't know." "I'm still the same person," Victoria said softly. "I'm still the woman who couldn't get a stroller up the stairs. I'm still the mom who worries about Oliver constantly. I'm still the person who thinks your jokes are funny and loves talking with you about everything and nothing. This changes things, though. Does it have to?" Quinn looked at her, really looked at her. She seemed vulnerable standing there in her expensive dress in his shabby apartment, holding her breath while waiting for his response. "I need to think about this," he said finally. Victoria's face fell slightly, but she nodded. "I understand. Let me take Oliver home." The transfer was awkward, both of them avoiding eye contact. Victoria gathered Oliver's things quickly and left with a quiet "thank you," and Quinn was alone with his thoughts. He spent the night awake on the couch, his mind racing. A CEO. Victoria was a CEO of a major corporation, and she had been spending her free time with him, a warehouse worker who could barely afford coffee at the cafe where they met. It didn't make sense, unless she pitied him. The thought made his stomach turn. Was that what this was? Charity. A wealthy woman amusing herself with someone from a different world. But then he remembered the way she looked at him, the genuine warmth in her laugh, the trust she showed when she asked him to watch Oliver. That wasn't pity. That was something else. Emma found him on the couch the next morning, staring at the ceiling. "Daddy, why are you sad?" she asked, climbing up beside him. "I'm not sad, Princess. You look sad." Emma patted his cheek. "Did you and Miss Victoria have a fight?" "Not a fight, just grown-up stuff." "Do you like her?" Quinn pulled his daughter close. "Yeah, I do." "Then you should tell her. That's what the prince does in my stories. If only it were that simple." Victoria texted him that afternoon. "Can we talk?" Quinn stared at the message for a long time before responding. "Yeah, park tomorrow, usual time." "I'll be there." Quinn brought Emma to the park the next day, his stomach in knots. Victoria was already there with Oliver, sitting on their usual bench. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept well either. They let Emma play on the equipment while they talked, Oliver content in his stroller between them. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner," Victoria began. "I should have been upfront from the beginning." "Why me?" Quinn asked bluntly. "You could have anyone." Why spend time with a guy who works in a warehouse and lives in a one-bedroom apartment? Victoria turned to face him fully. "Because you're kind. Because you helped a stranger without expecting anything in return. Because you're an amazing father. Because you make me laugh. Because when I'm with you, I feel like I can breathe for the first time in years." Quinn's heart hammered in his chest. "Victoria, I know there's a gap between us financially. I know this situation is complicated, but I don't care about any of that. I care about you, Quinn. I have for weeks now." She took a shaky breath. "And I think you care about me too." "I do," he admitted, "but I don't know how this works. Your world and mine, they're so different. So we figure it out together." Victoria reached for his hand, and he let her take it. "Look, I'm not expecting you to have all the answers right now. I just need you to know how I feel and to tell me honestly if you feel the same way." Quinn looked at their joined hands, then at Emma playing happily on the swings, then at Oliver sleeping peacefully, and finally at Victoria's hopeful face. "I feel the same way," he said. "I've been falling for you since that second time at the metro station, maybe even before that. But I'm scared, Victoria. I'm scared I can't give you what you need. I'm scared I'm not enough." You are enough, Victoria said fiercely. Quinn, you're more than enough. I don't need fancy dinners or expensive gifts. I need someone who sees me, really sees me, not just the CEO or the money or the company. You do that. From the very first day, you've done that. What about Emma and Oliver? This affects them too. Emma adores me, and I adore her. Oliver lights up when he sees you. Our kids are already attached to each other. Victoria squeezed his hand. I'm not saying this will be easy. There will be challenges, things we'll have to work through, but I want to try if you do. Quinn felt the last of his resistance crumbling. Life was too short and too hard to push away something good when it found you. Okay, he said. Let's try. Victoria's smile was radiant. She leaned in slowly, giving him time to pull away, but Quinn met her halfway. Their first kiss was soft and sweet, full of promise and hope. Daddy's kissing Miss Victoria. Emma's delighted shriek broke them apart. She was running toward them, her face lit up with joy. Does this mean she's your girlfriend for real? Quinn laughed, pulling his daughter into his lap. What do you think, Em? Should Miss Victoria be my girlfriend? Yes. Emma turned to Victoria seriously. You have to promise to be nice to my daddy. I promise, Victoria said solemnly. Your daddy is very special to me, and you can't make him sad. I'll do my best not to. Emma seemed satisfied with this. She hugged Victoria tightly, and Quinn watched with a full heart as the woman he was falling in love with embraced his daughter. The next few months were a learning curve for everyone. Victoria's world was demanding in ways Quinn hadn't fully understood. She had meetings that ran late, business trips that took her away for days, and a level of scrutiny that came with being a public figure. But she made time for him and Emma whenever she could, often showing up at Quinn's apartment after work still in her business clothes, eager to leave the CEO persona at the door. Quinn struggled with his own insecurities. The first time Victoria invited him to a company event, he had nothing appropriate to wear and had to borrow a suit from a coworker. He felt out of place among the executives and investors, hyper-aware of every word he spoke. But Victoria stayed by his side the entire evening, her hand in his, making it clear to everyone that he belonged there because he belonged with her. There were practical challenges, too. Victoria's townhouse was in an expensive neighborhood across the city. Between Quinn's work schedule and Emma's daycare, coordinating time together required careful planning. Victoria offered to pay for a better daycare closer to her place, but Quinn's pride initially bristled at the suggestion. They had their first real argument about it in Victoria's kitchen after the kids were asleep. I'm not trying to control anything, Victoria said, frustrated. I'm trying to make our lives easier. By throwing money at the problem, Quinn shot back. I've been taking care of Emma just fine on my own. I know you have. You're an incredible father, but why is it wrong for me to want to help? Because I don't want to be your charity case, Victoria. I don't want you to feel like you have to take care of me. Victoria's eyes flashed. Is that really what you think this is? Charity? Quinn ran his hand through his hair. I don't know what to think sometimes. You have everything. What do I bring to this relationship besides baggage and bills? You bring yourself, Victoria said, her voice softer now. You bring love and stability and partnership. You bring Emma, who makes me smile every single day. You bring the feeling I get when I come home and you're there, like everything is going to be okay no matter what happened at work. Quinn felt his anger deflating. I just want to pull my own weight. You do, every single day. Victoria moved closer to him. Quinn, relationships aren't transactional. I'm not keeping score of who pays for what or who does more. We're a team and teams support each other. If the situation were reversed, if you had the means to make things easier, wouldn't you do it? He thought about that. If he could give Emma better opportunities, a safer neighborhood, more stability, he would do it in a heartbeat. Yeah, I would. So let me, please. Not because you need saving, but because I love you and I want to make our lives together better. It was the first time she had said those words. I love you. Quinn pulled her into his arms. I love you too, he whispered against her hair. I'm sorry for being stubborn. You're not stubborn. You're proud and independent, and those are things I love about you, but you have to let me in, all the way in." They transferred Emma to a better daycare near Victoria's place the following week. Quinn still insisted on paying his share, and Victoria agreed, even though they both knew her share was significantly larger. It was a compromise, and that was what relationships were built on. As fall turned to winter, their relationship deepened. Emma and Oliver became inseparable, with Oliver crawling after Emma wherever she went and Emma taking her role as big sister seriously. Victoria's place became their gathering spot on weekends, with Emma having her own room decorated in her favorite purple color, and Quinn finally admitting that the guest room bed was more comfortable than his couch. Quinn met Victoria's parents over Thanksgiving, a nerve-wracking experience that turned out better than he expected. Richard and Margaret Greene were initially reserved, clearly concerned about their daughter's choice to date a warehouse worker, but Emma's charm won them over. By the end of the evening, Margaret was showing Emma family photo albums, and Richard was deep in conversation with Quinn about sports. "You make our daughter happy," Margaret told Quinn privately as he was helping clear dishes. "That matters more than anything else." Victoria met Quinn's mother over Christmas. Linda Navarro lived upstate in a small house near the Canadian border, her health not great but her spirit strong. She pulled Quinn aside while Victoria was helping Emma build a snowman. "She's good for you," Linda said. "Don't let pride or fear mess this up." "I'm trying, Ma. Try harder. Women like that don't come around often." Quinn proposed on New Year's Eve, though not in the way he originally planned. He had intended to do it at midnight during the fireworks, a grand romantic gesture. But Emma came down with a stomach bug around 8, and suddenly, the glamorous party Victoria had been invited to didn't matter. They spent the evening taking turns sitting with Emma, bringing her water and crackers, making sure she was comfortable. Around 11, Emma finally fell asleep, exhausted. Quinn and Victoria collapsed on the couch in her living room, both wearing sweatpants and looking haggard. "Some New Year's Eve," Victoria said with a tired laugh. "Yeah." Quinn looked at her, this incredible woman who had spent her evening cleaning up after his sick daughter without a single complaint, and he knew he couldn't wait any longer. "Victoria." Marry me." She sat up, suddenly alert. "What?" Quinn pulled the ring box from his pocket. He had been carrying it around for weeks, waiting for the perfect moment. "This isn't how I planned it. I wanted fireworks and champagne and something worthy of you, but I can't wait anymore. I want to spend every New Year's Eve with you, whether we're at fancy parties or taking care of sick kids. I want to be your partner in everything. I want to build a life with you. So, Victoria Greene, will you marry me?" Victoria's eyes were shining with tears. "Yes, yes, Quinn, of course, yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger. It was modest compared to what she could afford herself, but she looked at it like it was the most precious thing in the world. "It's perfect," she whispered. "You're perfect." They kissed as the clock struck midnight, the sound of fireworks echoing in the distance. Emma appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Why are you kissing?" she asked sleepily. Quinn pulled away from Victoria, grinning, because Victoria said yes. "Yes to what?" "To being part of our family forever, to being your mom if you want that." Emma's face broke into the biggest smile Quinn had ever seen. She ran to them and they both scooped her up, the three of them tangled together on the couch. "I want that," Emma said firmly. "Can Oliver be my real brother then?" Victoria laughed through her tears. "Yes, sweetheart. He'll be your real brother." They decided on a small wedding that spring, just family and close friends. Victoria's parents offered to pay for an elaborate event, but both Quinn and Victoria wanted something intimate and meaningful. They got married in Victoria's parents' garden upstate, with Emma as the flower girl and Oliver being held by Victoria's father during the ceremony. Quinn wore a suit that actually fit, purchased with Victoria's help, though he had insisted on contributing. Victoria wore a simple white dress that made her look like something out of a dream. As they exchanged vows, Quinn couldn't believe this was his life. "I promise to support your dreams," Victoria said, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. "I promise to be a partner in every sense of the word. I promise to love Emma as my own and to help you raise our children with kindness and strength. I promise to choose you every day for the rest of our lives." Quinn had written his own vows, practicing them dozens of times so he wouldn't freeze up. "I promise to be worthy of your love. I promise to be the rock you lean on when things get hard. I promise to love Oliver as my own son and to be the father both our children deserve. I promise to never let my pride get in the way of us. I promise to love you fiercely and completely until my last breath." When they were pronounced husband and wife, the small gathering erupted in applause. Emma cheered the loudest, throwing her basket of petals in the air in celebration. The reception was held in a rented tent on the same property. There was music and dancing, good food and better company. Quinn watched Victoria twirl Emma around the dance floor, both of them laughing, and felt a swell of emotion so strong it nearly knocked him over. "You did good, son," his mother said, appearing at his elbow. She looked healthier than she had in months, happy. "Real good. I got lucky, Ma. Luck has nothing to do with it. You're a good man who deserves good things." Later that night, after the guests had gone home and the kids were asleep in the house, Quinn and Victoria stood in the garden under the stars. "Mrs. Navarro," Quinn said, testing out her new name. Victoria wrinkled her nose. "I'm keeping Greene professionally, but I like the sound of Navarro for everything else." Yeah, she wrapped her arms around his waist. "How are you feeling about all of this? Terrified, grateful, happy, overwhelmed?" Quinn pulled her closer. "Like I'm the luckiest man alive. Good. Because I plan on making you feel that way every day." They moved into Victoria's townhouse officially after the wedding. It was a big adjustment for Quinn, going from his cramped apartment to a place with multiple bedrooms, an actual yard, and a kitchen that wasn't falling apart. Emma adapted quickly, loving her new room and the proximity to Oliver. Quinn took longer, sometimes still feeling like a guest in his own home. Victoria was patient with him, including him in every decision about the house, making sure he knew this was his space too. Slowly, Quinn's things mixed with Victoria's. His books filled the shelves in the study. His photos joined hers on the walls. His coffee mugs found a home in the kitchen cabinets. The biggest change came when Victoria sat him down 3 months after the wedding. "I have a proposition," she said. They were in the living room, both kids playing together nearby. "Okay," Quinn said cautiously. "I want you to quit your warehouse job." Quinn's first instinct was to refuse, but he held his tongue, waiting for her to explain. "Before you say no, hear me out. You're exhausted, Quinn. You work these brutal shifts, then come home and pour everything you have into being a dad and a husband. There's nothing left for you." Victoria took his hand. "I want you to go back to school." "School? You mentioned once that you wanted to be an engineer before Emma came along. That you had to drop out of college because you couldn't afford it anymore." Quinn had mentioned that months ago, barely remembering the conversation, but Victoria had remembered. That was a dream from a long time ago. "Why does it have to stay a dream?" Victoria challenged. "We can afford it." "I can afford it. You could go back to school, get your degree, and do what you actually want to do with your life. I can't just let you support us while I go to school." "Why not? Would it be different if you were supporting me while I went back to school?" Quinn thought about that. Honestly, it would feel different, but only because of his own hang-ups about gender roles and pride. "I'd be starting over at 30, he said. "I'd be years older than everyone else." "So, plenty of people go back to school later in life. You're smart, Quinn. You're wasted in that warehouse." He wanted to argue, but the truth was he was exhausted. The double shifts were killing him, and he missed spending time with Emma and Oliver. He missed having energy for Victoria at the end of the day. "What about Emma and Oliver? I'd need to study, do assignments. We'll figure it out together." "We're a team, remember?" Quinn looked at his wife, this woman who believed in him so completely it was almost overwhelming. "You really think I can do this?" "I know you can." He enrolled in community college that fall, starting with general courses to get back into the academic mindset. It was harder than he expected, juggling classes with family responsibilities, but Victoria was true to her word. She adjusted her schedule when possible, hired a nanny for the hours they both needed to be away, and created a study space for Quinn in the spare room. Emma was proud of her daddy going to school, often asking to see his homework. Oliver, now a toddler, would toddle into Quinn's study and climb onto his lap, and Quinn learned to balance textbooks with a squirming child. 2 years later, Quinn transferred to a 4-year university to complete his engineering degree. Victoria threw him a party to celebrate, inviting their friends and family. Emma made a banner that said, "Daddy's going to college," with pictures she had drawn of Quinn in a graduation cap. Life settled into a new rhythm. Quinn attended classes during the day, picked up the kids from school, and studied in the evenings while Victoria worked late. On weekends, they were all together, doing normal family things, going to the park, having movie nights, visiting grandparents. There were hard moments, of course. Quinn struggled with a particularly difficult calculus course and nearly gave up, convinced he was too old and too out of practice. Victoria stayed up with him night after night, quizzing him on formulas and bringing him coffee until he finally passed the final exam. Victoria had her own challenges at work. The board questioned some of her decisions, competitors made moves that threatened market share, and the stress sometimes followed her home. Quinn learned to recognize when she needed space and when she needed to talk, becoming the sounding board she had been for him. They had their second real fight when Victoria's ex, Oliver's biological father, suddenly reappeared wanting visitation rights. The man had been absent for Oliver's entire life, and now he was threatening legal action. "He doesn't get to just show up," Quinn said angrily. He had been Oliver's father in every way that mattered. The thought of that man disrupting their son's life made his blood boil. "I know, but legally he might have rights," Victoria said. She was scared, Quinn could tell, even though she was trying to stay calm. "Then we fight him. We get the best lawyers and we fight him." They did fight, and it was exhausting and expensive, even with Victoria's resources. The man eventually dropped his claim when it became clear he had no real interest in being a father, just in getting money from Victoria. But the ordeal left them all shaken. Oliver, now 3, had nightmares for weeks. Quinn would sit with him in the rocking chair in his room, singing soft songs until the boy fell back asleep. Victoria threw herself into work as a coping mechanism until Quinn gently pulled her back, reminding her that they needed to process this together. "I was so scared," Victoria admitted one night as they lay in bed. "Scared he would take Oliver away, scared I'd lose my son." "You'll never lose him." "I'll never let that happen." Quinn held her as she cried, something she rarely allowed herself to do. The experience brought them closer, a reminder that they were stronger together than apart. Quinn graduated with his engineering degree on a sunny day in May. His mother made the trip down, her health declining but her pride in her son evident. Victoria, Emma, and Oliver sat in the front row, cheering louder than anyone when Quinn's name was called. "Daddy did it?" Emma yelled, jumping up and down. After the ceremony, they took photos on the university lawn. Quinn in his cap and gown, Victoria at his side, Emma and Oliver in front of them. A family, complete and whole. Quinn was offered a job at a mid-sized engineering firm within a month of graduation. The salary was good, not comparable to Victoria's CEO income, but respectable. More importantly, the work was fulfilling in a way the warehouse never had been. On his first day, Victoria kissed him goodbye at the door. "I'm so proud of you," she said. "I couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to." As Quinn's career progressed, things balanced out between them. He wasn't dependent on Victoria's income anymore, though hers was still significantly higher. But it mattered less now. They were partners in every sense, both contributing to their household in their own ways. When Emma turned 8, she asked for a little sister. "Oliver's great, but I want a sister too," she announced over breakfast. Quinn and Victoria exchanged glances. They had talked about having more children, but hadn't made any firm decisions. "What do you think?" Quinn asked Victoria later. "I think our family could handle another member," Victoria said with a smile. "I'm not getting any younger, and I'd love to have a child with you, biologically ours together. Even though we already have Emma and Oliver, they're already ours, biology doesn't change that. But yes, I'd like to have a baby with you." Their daughter Rachel was born the following spring, a healthy baby with Quinn's dark hair and Victoria's green eyes. Emma was an attentive big sister, always wanting to help with feedings and diaper changes. Oliver was less interested in the baby, more focused on his trucks and blocks, but he would gently pat Rachel's head when prompted. The sleep deprivation was brutal, but they tackled it together, taking turns with night feedings so neither was completely exhausted. Quinn's flexible work schedule helped, and Victoria took a full maternity leave, something she had never done with Oliver. "This is different," she said, cradling Rachel in the rocking chair. "With Oliver, I was alone and scared, trying to prove I could do it all. Now I can just enjoy her." Quinn watched his wife with their daughter and felt a contentment he had never imagined possible years ago when he was just a struggling single dad carrying a stroller up metro stairs. Life continued, full and busy, and sometimes chaotic. Emma started 3rd grade and discovered a love for soccer. Oliver went to preschool and showed an early aptitude for art. Rachel grew from an infant to a toddler, her personality emerging as sweet but stubborn. Quinn advanced at his firm, eventually leading his own team of engineers. Victoria continued to run her company, though she made a conscious effort to maintain work-life balance, turning down opportunities that would take her away from family for extended periods. They celebrated their 5th wedding anniversary with a trip to the Caribbean, Victoria's parents watching the kids for a week. It was the first time they had been truly alone since Rachel's birth. "Remember when you carried my stroller up those stairs?" Victoria asked. They were on the beach, watching the sunset. "How could I forget? Changed my whole life." "Mine too," Victoria leaned against him. "I was at such a low point that day, exhausted from work, struggling with motherhood alone, feeling like I had to be perfect at everything. And then you just helped, no questions asked, no ulterior motives. You reminded me that there were still good people in the world. I just saw someone who needed help. That's what made you special. You didn't see a CEO or money or an opportunity. You saw a mom with a stroller." Victoria turned to face him. "These past 5 years have been the best of my life, even with all the fights and stress and chaos, especially with all that, because we went through it together." Quinn kissed her, tasting salt and sunscreen and the promise of many more years to come. When they returned home, Emma had a surprise for them. She had made a family tree for a school project, carefully drawing each member of their blended family and writing facts about everyone. "You and Mommy met at the metro," Emma read from her presentation. "Daddy helped Mommy with Oliver's stroller because he's a helper. They fell in love and got married, and now we're all a family. I have 1 brother and 1 sister and the best parents in the world." Quinn had to excuse himself, overwhelmed with emotion. Victoria found him in the kitchen, wiping his eyes. "She's not wrong," Victoria said softly. "About what? Best parents in the world, best family, all of it." Quinn pulled her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her perfume. "I love you, Victoria Navarro. I love you too, Quinn." The years continued to pass. Emma grew into a teenager, all long legs and strong opinions. Oliver developed into a quiet, thoughtful boy with a talent for drawing. Rachel was their wildfire, constantly moving and getting into everything. Quinn's mother passed away when Rachel was 4, a peaceful death that came after a long illness. The whole family attended the funeral, Emma and Oliver old enough to understand loss, Rachel too young to grasp the permanence of it all. "She was so proud of you," Victoria told Quinn as they stood at the burial site. Every time I talked to her, she went on and on about how you turned your life around, how you were such a wonderful father and husband. I wish she could have had more time with the kids. She had enough time to know they were loved and cared for. That's what mattered to her. Quinn inherited his mother's small house upstate. After cleaning it out, a bittersweet process full of memories, they decided to keep it as a vacation home. It became their summer retreat, a place where the kids could run wild and they could escape the city's intensity. Victoria eventually stepped down as CEO when she turned 45, transitioning to a chairman role that gave her more flexibility and less daily pressure. She wanted to be present for the kids' teenage years, not wanting to miss the important moments. "I've spent 20 years building that company," she told Quinn when she announced her decision. "I don't need to prove anything anymore. I want to focus on us, on our family." Quinn supported her decision completely, understanding the weight she had been carrying all these years. With more free time, Victoria got involved in Emma's school, chaperoning field trips and helping with fundraisers. She attended Oliver's art shows, often buying multiple pieces to encourage his talent. She was there for Rachel's dance recitals, video camera in hand, cheering louder than anyone. They became that couple that people looked at and wondered how they made it work. The former CAO and the engineer, the wealthy businesswoman and the former warehouse worker, the blended family that seemed too perfect to be real. But they knew the truth. It wasn't perfect. There were still arguments about money and parenting, and whose turn it was to deal with the broken dishwasher. There were still moments of doubt and frustration and exhaustion. What made them work was the choice they made every day to choose each other, to communicate even when it was hard, to remember that they were on the same team. Emma graduated high school with honors and a full soccer scholarship to a good university. The ceremony was emotional, Quinn thinking about how his little girl had grown into this confident young woman. "I'm going to miss her," Victoria said that night as they lay in bed. "Me too, but we did good. Look at her, Victoria, she's amazing." "She is, they all are." Oliver was 14 now, applying to art programs for high school. Rachel was 9, still their wildfire but channeling that energy into dance and gymnastics. On their 15th wedding anniversary, Quinn and Victoria renewed their vows. It was a small ceremony, just them and the kids and a handful of friends, held in the same garden where they had first married. Emma cried through the whole thing. Oliver drew them a portrait as a gift. Rachel insisted on being the flower girl again, even though she was too old for it. 15 years ago, I promised to love you forever," Quinn said, holding Victoria's hands. "That was the easiest promise I ever made and the one I'm most proud of keeping. You've made me a better man, a better father, a better person." Here's to 15 more and 15 after that, and as many as we're lucky enough to get. Victoria's vows were equally heartfelt, speaking of partnership and growth and the unexpected beauty of their love story. As they kissed, their kids cheering, Quinn thought back to that day at the metro station. He had been exhausted, struggling, barely keeping his head above water. He had helped a stranger with a stroller because it was the right thing to do, never imagining it would lead to this. Life was funny that way. One small act of kindness, one moment of connection, and everything changed. Years later, at Oliver's art school graduation, Quinn stood with Victoria watching their son accept his diploma. Rachel was about to start high school, already receiving interest from college dance programs. Emma was in her 3rd year of college, thriving on and off the soccer field. "We did it," Victoria whispered, linking her arm through Quinn's. "Did what?" "Everything we set out to do. Raised good kids, built a life together, made it work despite all the odds." Quinn looked at his wife, still beautiful after all these years, her hair now showing threads of silver, laugh lines around her eyes from years of smiling. "It was never about the odds," he said. "It was about us deciding we were worth fighting for." That night, after the celebrations were over and the kids were in their rooms, Quinn and Victoria sat on their back porch, a bottle of wine between them. "Do you ever think about how different things could have been?" Victoria asked. "If I had taken a different train that day, if you had been running too late to help?" "Sometimes, but I try not to dwell on it. We found each other, and that's what matters." "You know what I think about," Victoria smiled. "I think about how I was this powerful CEO, used to being in control of everything, and I couldn't get a simple stroller up the stairs. And you, this man who had every reason to be bitter about life, stopped to help anyway. You weren't trying to impress me or get something from me. You were just being you. I saw someone who needed help. You saw me, the real me, underneath the job title and the money. That's why I fell in love with you, Quinn, because you saw me, and you saw me. Not the struggling dad or the warehouse worker, just me." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. Somewhere inside, they could hear the kids talking and laughing, the sounds of their family. "I'd do it all again," Victoria said softly. "Every hard moment, every challenge, every fight. I'd do it all again to end up right here." "Me too," Quinn agreed. "Every single time." As they sat together in the peaceful evening, Quinn reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From that chance meeting at the metro station to this moment, surrounded by the family they had built together, it had been anything but easy. But it had been worth it. Every struggle, every sacrifice, every moment of doubt had led to this life full of love and purpose. He thought about the man he had been 15 years ago, exhausted and struggling, wondering if things would ever get better. If he could go back and tell that man what was coming, that helping a stranger with a stroller would change everything, would he believe it? Probably not. But that was okay. Some stories were too good to be believed until you lived them yourself. Victoria leaned her head on his shoulder, and Quinn wrapped his arm around her, holding her close. Inside, Rachel laughed at something Oliver said, and they could hear Emma video calling from college, her voice excited as she shared news about an upcoming game. This was their happily ever after. Not perfect, but real. Not easy, but worth it. Not what either of them had planned, but better than anything they could have imagined. And it had all started with a simple act of kindness on a metro station staircase, proving that sometimes the smallest gestures lead to the biggest changes, and that love can find you in the most unexpected places, at the most unexpected times, if you're just willing to help carry someone's burden up the stairs. Quinn smiled, kissed his wife's forehead, and settled in to enjoy the evening, grateful for every moment that had led them here and excited for all the moments still to come. Their story, which had begun with such unlikely circumstances, had become something beautiful and lasting, a testament to the power of kindness, the strength of commitment, and the enduring nature of true love. As darkness fully settled and the first stars became visible, Quinn made a silent promise to never take this life for granted, to cherish every day with Victoria and their children, and to always remember that sometimes the best things in life come from simply being willing to help a stranger in need. Because that one act had given him everything he never knew he needed: a partner, a family, and a love story worth telling.